this lecture about Python exception. Myself Konkonjana, Assistant Professor of Greater Kolkata College of Engineering and Management. JS Group, it's a joint venture. So the topics in Module 8 that we cover are: what is exception, the try statement with an except clause, multiple exception blocks, the try finally statement, the exception argument, raising exceptions, user-defined exception. Now we'll start lecture 2 of module 8. We'll do more coding exercise on Python. I am using Python IDE with Python 3.8.3 shell, and I am using digital whiteboard for better clarification. Note down the text what I am writing in this digital whiteboard. In this lecture, we will be covering the exception argument, raising exception, user-defined exception. Always we are trying to catch the exception when it is occurred. We'll start first exception argument. When you write a program, it is very boring and tedious to write each and every exception type. Instead of writing each exception, you could use just one line. See the code what you need to do. Just I am writing a code. I've used the try block. Okay. Now just I am comparing with this thing. Okay. Now this is my try block. This is the try block. And I have write down the code there. The requested code. This is the code. Okay. And within this portion, I have write down the exception. This is my exception. Clear? And I have write E. Okay. Exception E. That will be caught. Clear? Now, just I am explaining what we have written there. Before that, I like to save it with a function. Save this one with the name of the file exception type. Okay. So here you can see that we have used a argument e. Argument e. Clear? I use the argument e. You can clearly I can see you that this is the argument. Okay, and you have caught this argument. You have used this argument. This argument will produce the type of the error, type of the exception that is occurred. Okay, and what is the type of the exception that will be typed here? Clear? Now I like to run this program right now. Okay. First, I like to enter the number 10. Next, again I like to run it and we'll input the value 0. Clear? I have input the value 0. 100 by 0. 100 by 0. Okay, 100 by 0. The value I have entered is 0. Clear? This is the value of this number right now. Okay. So what value will be printed? Division, any value by 0. But I did not mention here the type of the error. That will be caught. That will be caught. Okay. So next, I like to enter the value 0 and run it. Division by 0 and the type is class 0 division error. It lies onto the class 0 division error. Clear? What we have made? Again, I like to run it and we'll pass the value as this, as a string. Which type of error is occurred? Invalid literal for int with base 10. Okay, and this is class value error. This is class value error. Okay, so dynamically using the argument we have caught the exception. Okay, so the preceding code catches the exception as E and type also displays its exception type. In the code is the argument of the exception. Okay, is the argument of the exception. Clear? This is E. Okay. Next, I will discuss rising exception. The right statement allows the programmer. So one thing I need to mention there. that you can write down except exception as E. Okay, so this is the variable. This is not mandatory that you need to E. E is any type of variable that will store the exception type, exception message. Okay, is the exception argument actually. Exception argument. Clear? Is the exception argument. Fine. Okay. So I will start rising exception. The rise statement allows the programmer to trigger specific exception explicitly. Now just I like to execute a code. Okay. Which type of code? Where the exception has occurred. Where the exception is rise. Is there any IO error? Input output exception error? Now just show it. Okay. So when we are writing the code in line number 1, some error was rising. Okay. What we have used there? We need to use the rise keyword and error type we need to mention. Okay, error type we need to mention. In this way, we can use the definite error type. Okay, what we have written there? Here, rise is the keyword or error type that must be defined onto the Python compiler. Okay, Python compiler, it must be defined. Okay, so next one is the error with the statement that you like to mention. A statement will be occurred for you. Clear? So here you can also write your message. Okay, this is not so important, just to display that the statement that is displayed here specified by you. Now I like to execute it again. Rise IO error, and within that I like to mention the statement. Suppose I there, here I am there. Okay, clear? So this error was occurred there. Okay, now next we will learn user defined exception. Okay, Python allows you to define your own exception. Exception should be inherited from the exception class. From where it will be inherited? It will be inherited from the exception class. This is the exception class. Okay, my exception, this is the name of my exception, and this is the name of the class, exception class. And I will like to define my own exception like that way. Let's discuss with an example. Just I am writing some code here. Okay. Now just I am explaining it. This is the class keyword. Already we have some knowledge about the class and object. Okay. And this is very important. This is the exception. We have used the exception of the defined class. Now another thing you need to mind that this is mandatory. This is mandatory. INIT, this is mandatory. You must have to include these methods to access the members of this exception class. Clear? This is my own defined exception. Now, these are the exception I have defined. This is my exception. Clear? So, now do not be afraid to see the full code. Let's see the class first. Now just I am running this one. Okay, enter the number. So I have entered 1. Number is not 2. So when the exception will be occur? When the number is 2, then the exception will be occur. Otherwise, the exception will not be occur. Just again I am running this module 2. Okay, my exception occur. Different type of exceptions will be occur. Different type of error we can generate. Okay, so this is user defined exception. You think this is very big code. Okay, you think this is very big code, but you don't have to worry about this code. Okay, just I am marking that is very required, that is actually required for you. Okay, this portion is required to create your own exception. Okay, this will create your own exception. The preceding code define the exception class. Now the properties will be inherited, which inherits the base class exception. Okay, so you need to note it down. Just you need to note it down. Okay, this is the main portion. Okay, this exception is main. Okay, now what is required very much? My exception class that will be inherited the base class of what? Base class of exception. This exception basically defined by the Python. So in this example, the default line exception has been overridden. This will be overridden. Okay, that will be overridden there. The preceding code rise the user defined exception. Already I have told you, if you pass the value to, the rise exception is handled by the except block that I have mentioned there. This is my except block. Okay. But if you pass, already I have mentioned you, if you pass the number 2, then error will be occur. Otherwise, no error will be occur. Now, this is for your information that already we have completed Module 8 Lecture 2. This is the end of the exception. Also, along with that, we have completed Python module. Next in this classes, we will do project using Python. Thank you all very much. Before that, just I am like to go through the syllabus that we have covered. Python Module 1 Introduction, Module 2 Conditional Statement and Control Statement. In Module 3 String Manipulation, Tuple, these are the combination already we have discussed. Module 5 Dictionary, Module 6 Function, Module 7 about the modules, and last of all we have completed exception handling, and that is the end of the Python. Thank you very much.